Now, let's get started with our keynote address.
Thank you, Andrea. It's great to be invited to speak to this group. I met many of you yesterday on the session with Brian Lamb. It was great to hear your stories and why and how you're participating. Today in my time, I'm going to try to share with you, as you heard yesterday, I'm a longtime C-SPANer, nearly 40 years here. My whole career based here with Brian and Robert and so many others, and committed to this. So I'm going to share with you a couple of just sort of my personal sort of affinities for the video library and the way I use it as not an academic, but just someone who's interested in politics. We look a lot at the things that are gems, we call them, in the video library. We even have a podcast now called The Weekly that Howard Mortman dives into the library and gets things that are may date back 20, 30, 40 years, but are relevant to today's news stories. So take a look at The Weekly as our podcast. But yesterday, one of the things that Brian talked about was how misconceptions come out in political theory and how you can go to the video library to see what really happened. And the one that he referenced was a very fun event from the White House Correspondents' Dinner in 2011 when Barack Obama was speaking, and guess who was in the audience that night? Future President Donald Trump. So I want to start with what I would call one of the gems, and I'm going to play this clip from that evening.
There's a vicious rumor floating around that I think could really hurt Mitt Romney. I heard he passed universal health care when he was governor of Massachusetts. Someone should get to the bottom of that. And I know just the guy to do it. Donald Trump is here tonight. Now, I know that he's taken some flack lately, but no one is happier, no one is prouder to put this birth certificate matter to rest than the Donald. And that's because he can finally get back to focusing on the issues that matter. Why did we fake the moon landing? What really happened in Roswell? And where are Biggie and Tupac? All kidding aside, obviously we all know about your credentials and breadth of experience. For example, no, seriously, just recently in an episode of Celebrity Apprentice, at the steakhouse, the men's cooking team did not impress the judges from Omaha Steaks. And there was a lot of blame to go around, but you, Mr. Trump, recognized that the real problem was a lack of leadership. And so ultimately you didn't blame Little John or Meatloaf. You fired Gary Busey. And these are the kind of decisions that would keep me up at night. Well handled, sir. Well handled. Say what you will about Mr. Trump. He certainly would bring some change to the White House. Let's see what we've got up there. So, yes, this has been quite a...
I hope the audio worked all right on that. I don't feel like we were getting the audio from the laugh track for some reason. There was lots of laughter, but that appearance, Obama was very successful at those dinners. And as Brian referenced yesterday, a lot of people say that was the moment where Mr. Trump decided to get his revenge, and he definitely did want to run for president. So I think those are the sort of fun things that we find our viewers love and find in the library and get a lot of views. They get a lot of shares, and people clip them and post them to their YouTube channels and get even more exposure for C-SPAN. And that's what starts to get at the importance for us, for the video library, beyond what you all know so well of the academic use, is the way consumers might use it. And there's so much ability to find things if you know how to find them, but it's difficult. So one of the things that we talk with Robert about and we're working on is ways of making search better, of promoting the video library in different ways, and using technology to put video content from the archives onto new platforms. But for me, I think one of the main points in my career here that struck me that the video library was C-SPAN's most valuable resource was in the early days of my career in 1991. In August of 1990, in August of 1990, Saddam Hussein went across the border into Kuwait. And from that August 2nd until mid-January, when Operation Desert Storm began, there are about 150 or 160 hours of content in the C-SPAN video library of Congress debating and talking about it, of State Department press conferences, of Pentagon press conferences, and all these things. And that was just fascinating. But in January, once the war began, I'm going to share another screen here. Something unique happened at that point. How many of you, I can't see you, but you think to yourself, how many of you know who General Norman Schwarzkopf is? Schwarzkopf became the CENTCOM commander, the central commander of the operation in the Persian Gulf. And starting in January, you can see, looking from the bottom of this page up, this is General Schwarzkopf appearances in the video library in the year 1991. You can see, starting in the first year, he started to do these PowerPoint press conferences, these news briefings, and they became absolute must-see television. People went crazy for these. They were great for C-SPAN. They were also awesome just in informing the public about what was happening in the war. But watch as his year goes on. He gives the news briefings. We're into February now. We're into March, and we're already at a ceasefire. We're into April, and he's getting a grand reception at the White House. By May, he's addressing Congress. He's getting a congressional tribute. He's, of course, giving the commencement at the Naval Academy. And then, by June, he's having to testify about different things that went on in the Gulf War. So if you want to look at how superpower went to war in the late 20th century, you have all of that video of Congress, the State Department, the Defense Department, the things that the administration was doing. And you not only have a written record of it, you have how their face looked during it, what their expressions were, what was going on. So as primary source material, this was incredibly valuable, I think. And then a year later, Schwarzkopf had written his biography and came in and talked to Brian.
General Norman Schwarzkopf, author of It Doesn't Take a Hero, buried in your book is the following sentence. Almost every general in Desert Shield had fought in Vietnam, and we all remembered feeling abandoned by our countrymen. You had 2 tours in Vietnam. How much did that experience impact the rest of your career?
Oh, it had probably more impact than any other experience I had in my entire military career. Many of the decisions that I made in Desert Storm and Desert Shield, many of the decisions that were made by subordinates were a direct result of things that we had learned from our Vietnam experience. Maybe not things that had gone well. You know, you learn just as much by seeing things done wrong, and you sometimes more, and you say, I'll never do it that way, and then you do it differently. But
So I could go on watching that for a long time, because that was such a big part of mine, my wife's, my friends' life, of what was happening then. We knew a lot of people in the military. We knew people who were serving. So for me, not as an academic, but just as a person interested in history and some military history, the way I would go back and on the History Channel and watch World War II stuff. My father was a World War II vet. I can go to the video library and find those sorts of resources is absolutely fascinating to me. And I have friends that I've encouraged to do it for whatever their interests are. So I don't share that because that's going to teach you how to use the video library, but I hope it helps you think about how non-academics can find things there and how it can help you all sort of think through and focus your attentions on helping surface those sorts of narratives that people can go find in the video library. Any questions about that, or I'm going to move on a little bit to C-SPAN business. All right, I'm going to go on. So Brian mentioned yesterday sort of the challenges that C-SPAN has of at one point being in 100 million homes in, about 10 years ago, and today being in somewhere in the mid 50 million homes. And our revenue all is from license fees paid by our distribution partners, the cable and satellite companies. That is our primary source of revenue. So it's been nearly halved in just about 10 years. That's put a lot of pressure on us to tighten our belts and to do things differently. And we're doing that. But what myself and many of us are focused on is, how does C-SPAN get through this? How can we remain a relevant and responsible news organization that people want and demand enough that they'll pay for it in some way or another, whether we can get funders or donors or the cable industry, or if we go direct to consumers, whatever that is, right? How do you do that without changing the mission, without being something different and ultimately like a lot of other news services? Our distinction of putting the camera in the back of the room and showing events in the entirety, not having a lot of voiceovers, not providing answers, but just providing access, we're told again and again and again and again by our viewers that value us that that's what they value most. Think for yourselves, unfiltered. You've heard us use all these taglines about ourselves. It's because that's what we hear from our viewers. That's what they value the most. So we look at what we do on a day in and day out basis. Today's the speaker vote, right? And if you're going to watch the House, our audience numbers are going to skyrocket on days like today across all of our platforms. They're not enormous numbers, but they're very solid, and people know to come to C-SPAN on those days. But day in and day out, the audiences are pretty small. It's not television for everyone, right? So how do we prove our value and worth, particularly when there are more and more and more news organizations with video, streaming video on their websites, from newspapers to new news organizations to think tanks to Congress itself, streaming all this stuff? We're competing with all them. How do we make ourselves stand out? Well, part of that's by providing context. Part of it's by providing sort of high quality, but much of it, we think in the future, has to be helping people find things more easily. And Brian mentioned yesterday our mobile app. So we launched about just 2 years ago, last month, we launched a mobile app called C-SPAN Now. It's called C-SPAN Now because it is limited to the most current content. It's things that are live today, things that the last 20 or so programs, and it's 20 to 30 clips of the most recent things. It really is for when you're on the go to watch. It's been terrific for us. Got hundreds of thousands of downloads, a huge number of daily users. It is one of our most successful new products. It is our most successful new product maybe ever launched. And again, it brings us relevance, because if we have a home on people's phones and they're using it, that means they like and value C-SPAN. That's critically important. We've also watched where television audiences are going, and they're moving away from cable TV and linear television channels, and they're going to connected TV and connected TV apps. So the last thing I want to show you today, I'm excited to do this, and Brian again mentioned it yesterday, is we have launched a connected TV app. Many of you probably know what that is, but it means if you go to your television set You can, if you're a Comcast customer, you can say, show me C-SPAN Select. Say that into your voice-controlled app. Those of you in Lafayette that have Comcast either on broadband, or if you're a video subscriber for Xfinity Comcast, you can speak into your remote and say, show me C-SPAN Select, and this is what you'll see. Notice that it is designed and looks a fair amount like Netflix or HBO Max or lots of different services. You'll see there's a screen across the top here where you can go through different things. I'm going to come back to this, but essentially it's a selection of carousels offering different content. At any point in time, we can have up to 8 live programs. So you see this first row of live. There's 3 right now, pretty typical. We expect the House to come in soon and have a vote. If you haven't heard, Mr. Emmer won in the caucus, but in the straight up vote on him, he was 26 dissenters to him. So they are working through those 26 now before they take it to the House floor today for a full vote. Back to the app, we'll go down. This is what I'm talking about. It's so important for us to help surface content for viewers in an easier way than having to come and visit our website. So right below the live section, we have featured. This is chosen by a human being every day, updating. Manuel Tui does it for us right now, where he'll put content on there that we think the audience will be particularly interested in at this time. We have a row of the latest programs. Much as Robert does on cspan.org, we're going to feature trending topics, and I'll come back and show you more of these later, but these are the 4 that we're doing now. Here's where C-SPAN does short clips. You can see 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute clips of members of Congress as they've come out of those caucus meetings and talking about what's happening with the votes on the speaker. Of course, now and through next December, we'll have the campaign 2024 carousel filled with campaign events. We feature our signature program, Washington Journal. The House and Senate get their own pages. The Biden administration does. The Supreme Court does. I know some of you are working on a lot of Supreme Court stuff. You could use this as a valuable resource, I think, for you. I'll show you more of the series, but we feature some of our series, Brian's and Susan's Q&As. Here's our recent series, Books That Shaped America is there. Hope you've been able to see some of that. We mentioned yesterday these original productions where we went in and did documentaries on the Capitol, the White House, the Supreme Court, and the Senate. We feature some current events from C-SPAN Classroom. There's a lot in there for, I think, many of you are saying that you collect clips and things to use in your classrooms. I would encourage you to go to this section of C-SPAN Classroom and look up current events. I think that might help you find some clips. And then here we are on the latest topics. So you can see here's 20 programs of our latest coverage on these key issues of the Israeli conflict, Ukrainian conflict, the economy, and immigration. So I'm going to go back to the top and race through this a little bit. We're on the home screen. You can look at upcoming live programs. So there's what we know is coming up later today. Going to update the live streams as we come back. We're going across trending topics we looked at. Here's where I start. I think you've seen on that main page how we are surfacing content in an easily navigable way of current content and library content. When you go here to series and open that up, you'll see that 12 of our most recognized series have a page where 20 of their most recent programs are there. So here's a way, easy for viewers, the same way you would search for movies on one of the really popular connected TV apps, a Netflix or an HBO or a Paramount or any of those. The same user interface, you can come and find some of the best things. Hey, look at that. I didn't even plan this in advance, but let's take a look at this program. Not bad. So you get a description up there, and then the program begins. That was pretty slick of me. I didn't do it on purpose. I wish I had. So you can see that each of these series has that same sort of opportunity. We even went back and put Brian Lamb's book notes on there. Why not? Most of them are pretty evergreen productions. I'm going to exit out now. And I'm running out of time, but I wanted to show that off because we're exceptionally proud of that. It is just launched. It's available in each Comcast market. It is becoming available in each Charter or Spectrum market. We believe in late this year, it will be available in Mediacom markets and Cox Communications markets. So if you live or teach in any of those, I think by early 2024, you should definitely have access to this. We hope that it sets the stage and positions ourselves with our distribution partner affiliates for whatever linear cable TV might become. We have the linear channels, of course, but if that business really does completely go away, we have this app. And many people think that just how ESPN has an app, and everyone has an app like this now, that eventually the industry could move to just an all-app platform where you turn on your television and there's icon after icon after icon of individual brands. C-SPAN could be among those brands. You would click on it and go to a user interface, much like I've just shown. That's what I wanted to share with you. Any questions, any comments, any feedback on the Select app or the Now app or anything about C-SPAN?
So Peter, I dropped in the link to the webpage for the C-SPAN Now app, if anybody wants to go visit that and learn a little more about that. Is there a page yet designated for the C-SPAN Select?
There's not, no. It's tough to market a service that's only available in about less than a third of the country, because what we found is we ultimately upset a lot of people. There's probably somebody on this call that says, great, I don't have that, and we get a lot of angry, truly angry feedback on social platforms. So we've been honestly relatively quiet about it so far. Once we get in those other distribution partners, I think we'll start to talk about it a lot more. Any other comments or questions? Now, I was going to just ask for questions the whole time. I'm glad I didn't do that. Oh, Bryce Jensen raised a hand.
Yes.
Go ahead, Bryce.
Yeah, thank you for introducing the new features that C-SPAN is coming out with. These all sound very exciting to me. So a couple of years ago, I presented a paper at the C-SPAN research conference that leveraged the number of views of videos that existed on the cspan.org. And so it's fairly informative to get a sense of like the sorts of things that people are finding interesting within the political world. And so it would be great if, some of the information that in terms of views of videos on the app or videos that are being viewed in the Comcast app, if that information is also things that we can start archiving at, maybe not at cspan.org, but at least at Purdue, that would certainly be of interest to me as a researcher.
Interesting. Yeah, we do get analytics. It's so new. We really are only tracking at the highest sort of level, how many visitors we're getting and things like that. But we certainly can talk about getting views and having some storehouse for that so that you could use it for academic purposes. Good.
Let me just say, so if somebody cuts the cord, as they say, and they stay with Comcast for their internet service, they might get a flex box, and they can use this Select on that flex box and still get C-SPAN. Is that right?
If you are a current customer and don't have a flex box, or you become a broadband only customer in any Comcast market, they will, believe now, give you for free a flex box to add it in. And if you use that flex box connected to your television set, when you turn it on, it opens up a whole world of connected television apps. And on the very first page, you're going to see Comcast products, NBC and Comcast properties. You're going to see the big ones, YouTube and Netflix and HBO, Disney. Those will be right there. But then you can go searching through categories. You can go to sports, you can go to news and information, and C-SPAN is prominently featured in that news and information section. Or when you get that, I don't have a remote control here, but you can use your voice. Hit the blue voice button on the Comcast Flexbox or X1. I'm using all this slang. You can, on their set-top boxes or on their Flexbox, they have a voice command. And if you say into that, not show me C-SPAN, because that will try to take you to the linear channel, but show me C-SPAN Select, or just say C-SPAN Select, the app should open for you that easily. Eventually, we hope to say, if you say President Trump or Congress speaker race, up would come the C-SPAN app, but that's a little bit deeper search. Katie, you have a question?
Sorry, I do. Thank you so much. That was so interesting. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about how some of these strategies do fit into the bottom line in terms of, the C-SPAN's budget, its abilities to continue operating moving forward, and kind of the different business strategies that you're thinking about moving forward.
It's critical to it. So Brian said yesterday, ESPN gets something like $10 a month, and C-SPAN gets 6.25 cents. Think about that. That adds up to about $40 million a year from us, and $10.9 billion for ESPN. And that's only going down for both of us. It's going down, right? The challenges of it. So we're looking at ways of getting our content beyond linear TV to the platforms where we know people are consuming content, and trying to prove our value and worth on those platforms and figure out the revenue model. You've seen it'll be in, I think, December, 3 years that we launched our YouTube channel that has advertising on it. That's if you go to YouTube and put in C-SPAN, I hope you will, and follow us there. There's advertising there, and that started to generate revenue for us. We're putting advertisements on cspan.org. We've got advertisements display and pre-roll ads on this app. We will eventually add some pre-roll advertising to that connected TV app. All of that gives us revenue, but first it's distribution of our content on those platforms that's so important. And we're excited by that and heartened by that and optimistic by that, because if you think about what I just showed you, how much easier is it to watch and find stuff from C-SPAN in that atmosphere than it is by turning on C-SPAN on your TV? And, it's a 6-hour hearing that I really don't have any interest in. Here, with the using the technologies better, the way we are with that app, we're able to facilitate a viewer's capacity to consume our content in a much more user-friendly way, we believe. We'll find out in the coming months. Go ahead.
If I can just follow up. So if you can facilitate that, you get more people in those streaming or in the C-SPAN Connect, is the idea that you would then be able to sell more ads for that you'd be able to demonstrate the more people? So it's really turning to an advertiser-based model?
We don't expect, I'll be honest, I don't think that the advertising revenues will ever generate enough money to cover what we're losing through the linear world. It's never going to be a replacement business model for us. We just don't attract that much viewership. And the way you make a lot of money on that is ads every 6 minutes, right? Which is just not anything we're ever going to do. That's not an approach that we would take. As I said right at the top of the presentation, what people value most from us is us putting a camera in the back of the room and letting it go, and they think for themselves, and there's no interruptions. So we won't change from that, but it helps. And we're also, besides just the advertising revenue, we are beginning really just this week to start accept donations the way an NPR or PBS does. You will not see us hard sell it. It's been just a tiny button atop the page of cspan.org. We'll start to be a little bit more aggressive from that, saying some messages on C-SPAN radio, some messages on our podcast. You know, if you are not a cable television subscriber and you consume C-SPAN on these properties, on these platforms, so you're getting it for free, help us out. Send us a little love, show us your support so that we can continue to do this. We'll do all of those things, but really the goal in my mind is, and maybe it's naive, but I don't think so, is to show distribution partners that there's enough value in us that they should pay us a small license fee. So at some point, I hope that we could get a license fee for that app. If we go on, there's TV manufacturing. You can get Vizio and LG and Samsung. They all have platforms for an app like that. We anticipate going to them and talking to them about distribution on those. Maybe there's a license fee structure there for us, maybe not. It's all to be determined in the coming months and years. So the important thing for us was to build something that was attractive and user-friendly and displayed our content in a better way. And then we have to sort of push that as hard as we can. And if consumers accept it, we've done a good job. We hope that the revenue will follow. It's such a new world for us if you think about it. You know, we're almost 45 years. And we had such a solid revenue stream for a long time. You know it. You wrote a fabulous book about this business where it covers all that. And now we know. We always knew we were lucky and fortunate and what a great business we were in. We wore this white hat and we could feel really proud about what we were doing. And it wasn't all that hard. We didn't think it was easy at the time. But now that we see how tough it is to fund this place, we know how good we have it. But we're optimistic and we are believers in this place. And from Brian down to the newest employee, we're going to work to make it happen. Thanks. I've gone over. I don't want to. I would love to answer questions. I can talk about this place for a long time, as Robert knows. But thank you. And Katie, I told you on some messages. I absolutely loved the book. It was written for people like me. I think it was really great and so well sourced. I was very impressed.
So Peter, if anyone has any further questions about C-SPAN, is there a place that they can go, or can they reach out to you to get those questions answered?
Please reach out to me directly, pkiley@cspan.org. You can share my email. Thank you. I really appreciate the time today, Andrea. Thanks. It's good to reach smart people with our story who can be our advocates. I love it.
Thank you, Peter.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.